Going to call the Friday, April 4th, 2025 meeting of the Economic and Community Development Committee of the City Council to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Deep.
Present.
Councilor Kuzinskis.
Present.
President Harris.
Present.
Seeing as we have a quorum present, we will proceed. Is anyone here recording today's meeting other than staff? No, Councilor. No one is recording the meeting. We'll begin with item 11510, in order authorizing the creation of an economic development and finance manager for the position for the community development and planning department and approving the job description for said position. So with this position, with this item was referred to the Economic Development and, the Economic and Community Development Committee from our previous city council meeting. This is just for the public watching, so they know how this came to our committee. It was previously in the Finance Committee. They reported out on it at our city council meeting, at our last meeting. And so I think, from our perspective, from this committee's perspective, we're really going to be talking about kind of where this fits in the department and how it makes sense for your department. There is a financial piece to it. Obviously, the next item has to do with the salary and the compensation for it and how that works. So both items are on here because they both have to do with this position. And so I think we may kind of overlap some of the discussion right now about the next item. But the Finance Committee did already look at this from the financial standpoint and the pay and compensation. We can certainly discuss that here as well. But my kind of taken questions and things on it have to do with really our oversight piece from what this committee's responsibilities are and what kind of our mission is and where it fits into your department. So whereas I just wanted to mention the next item because that may come up in this discussion as well, and I don't think we have to separate the two discussions. We can just acknowledge it with the next item. But I would like to first start with Director Stevens, with you just giving kind of a summary of what the position is and how it came to be, just for us and for the public watching as well. And then I think we can go from there with our discussion if the committee's in agreement with that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So the position itself is a combination of both the budget/project manager, which is more of a financial standpoint for the department, as well as the economic development coordinator, which is a more, I would say, like front-facing. So the responsibilities of those two positions being combined together as one. So the responsibilities for both would be under the same purview with my supervision. I don't actually have the job description in front of me, but if you have any questions about the individual responsibilities, feel free to ask.
Thank you. I think, and we don't need to go over the job description. I think we have all that information. So I just wanted to be, just to be clear from your perspective, because that's my understanding, was that it's the two positions that are combined together.
Yeah.
I think there's an obvious financial savings where we're not benefiting two positions, we're benefiting one position. There's obviously a little bit of savings on the compensation piece of it. And again, I think finance, had covered that. So I would assume, but I wanted to ask you, the combination of this position, is this for more efficiency in your department? Like, where do you see this kind of lying as to kind of putting them together? Because we had two previously. What's going to be on this new person in this position?
So as I've taken the responsibilities myself on top of my director role here, I've taken the majority of responsibilities, all of them for the budget manager, and I would say like most of them for the economic development coordinator. So I'll be there to act both as I would say floodgate for what would be an acceptable level of responsibility to take things off my plate and offload that as a reflection of both the compensation and kind of the expectations for the role. So it's both for productivity within the department itself, a financial saving in case any professional services may be needed, so that money would be available as well within the financial savings of combining the two positions, for any specialized needs that the department may come up in the future. But the main goal would be the general productivity for the department. And I would hope down the line that this would be someone who I could rely on to, if we have any interns in the future through either the Mount, that would be something that they, along with myself, would be able to oversee, as there are kind of a wide variety of responsibilities, and hopefully get into a place where that could be delegated out as well.
Thank you. And then just for my kind of follow-up to that, and I'm going to open up to the committee as well, but just my follow-up to that question. So it sounds to me like kind of an analysis of the processes of your department and where this position lies within the other positions with your department has really just been done, and feel free to add to this, but I feel like it's been done by your experience in the position so far, as you've really had to take on some of the other responsibilities, as just kind of seeing. It looks to me like, just looking at what is done in your department so far, you've gathered that this would be a better use of this position to combine these two positions. But was there any other kind of formal, just look at the structure of the department in making the decision to present this?
I think previously, with the roles being divided, there was questions of whether there was a sufficient workload for people who were in the position previously. So trying to rectify that moving forward, I think this is a really good move for making sure that the position itself has enough responsibilities, has enough duties to see a sufficient workload for what we would expect here for all City Hall employees. But just from my experience taking on, I'm now the only signatory for financials, so all that is going through myself on top of my general day-to-day. So hopefully there hasn't been, well, I could say there hasn't been too much that has overflowed outside of what I've been able to manage myself. Maybe a couple of extra hours here and there during the week, just because it is three people's responsibilities now on myself. But I feel confident in saying that the two responsibilities for the two positions being combined would be able to be completed sufficiently by one person, at least under my supervision.
So because I'm all about, we want to save money where we can, and obviously, like I said, the financial piece of this is pretty obvious. But we also want to be sure that the person that you put in the position, they can handle the workload, they're compensated appropriately. We want to get a good applicant pool, like all of those other things. I think looking over the job description and the other details and things that were in the packet, I'm confident with that, because you would think you'd try to set yourself up to be successful, and I do think that you're doing that. It just the other piece of it too that I thought was really that was great about seeing these two combined positions without knowing everything that they do and just knowing what the new position would be, is that I'm all about efficiency in City Hall. We get questions as city councils, and I'm sure the mayor does as well, and you will as a department head, and maybe you already have, about the efficiency of what you're doing in your department. A big piece of this committee is for oversight, to make sure there's efficiency in the department, so that things get done. And I know that's probably been said to you many times since you've been hired in the circumstances you've been hired under. So I think this is a great idea. I love the idea of doing it, and I just think on our piece, just to make sure that there's anything that we haven't thought of or you haven't or whatever, I think that's kind of what this discussion was about for me. But I'm certainly open to basically supporting whatever we can to help you put your best foot forward, so when this position goes out, it gets to the people that may be interested and really qualified for it, so that again the department can just be as efficient as it can be. So I appreciate the information.
Yeah. At least I would say even this, when we hired for a replacement for the assistant position within my department, we did have applicants apply that I had to say to them, I think you would be a good fit for like a full-fledged, you know, role within a community development department. We don't have an opening for that at the time because we didn't have this opening. But if we're getting applicants for said position that I'd mentioned, the assistant, you know, I would think that with this bump in both responsibility, opportunity, over guidance for myself and the rest of the team, as well as the monetary compensation, I would hope that, you know, we'd get at least that, if not a step up from what we were getting from that applicant. So it seems like there is a hunger for these kinds of opportunities for people, you know, new out of college or have a couple years under their belt, or, you know, one of them we had was a real go-getter for between their experience trying to get as much as they could while they were in college themselves. So would hope to get some applicants such as that. And I've also put out a couple feelers with Fitchburg and Leominster's HR department to hopefully get some idea of what they've gotten in terms of applicants as well, to get a good idea of what they're experiencing with the hiring process for a more full team role that this would be. So I look forward to hearing back from them. I left a couple messages on their machines, so I'll hope to hear back from them shortly. And if there are any questions I can provide in terms of what they're able to answer, I'll be able to forward that over to the committee.
Thank you. That provides a lot of clarifications for the questions that I had. Any committee members? I'll open up to the committee. Do you have any questions?
I don't really have any questions. I do have a comment. I do appreciate the fact of, you know, the way that you're looking at this and the way that you're going. I was kind of worried about, you know, making two positions into one, but then seeing the savings and seeing exactly how you're looking at it, and I think this is the way that they're going about, you know, not necessarily eliminating positions, but combining positions. Even in my own personal job company, things as such, titles have changed, things as such for accountability, productivity, and efficiency. So I like to see that come, you know, in front of us, and I'm excited to see the way that it's going to go.
Thank you,
So,
Council.
thank you.
President Harris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Third meeting, we did it the first time.
I know.
So,
It's not over yet.
first off, I just want to acknowledge that we appreciate Finance Committee for sending this over to the Echo Dev Committee. Obviously, from a financial perspective, like the Chair said, this makes a ton of sense. I think, and I'd be curious the Director's opinion as well. The reason I believe this warrants a bit more discussion in this committee specifically is during the Mackey Park investigation, there was certainly my observation that the two previous roles that this would be combined into had a lot of hands in that project, between the economic development coordinator actually managing the project at one point, and the project manager also managing like the bills and the payments, the invoices, working with the contractors. And you could just see there was a lot of overlap, a lot of, I would say, misalignment in terms of who had ownership of certain responsibilities. And I'm curious if the Director thinks, would that be an additional area where we'd see efficiencies gained in terms of more clarity around roles and responsibilities and how your department's structured? Because I think this is a pretty significant change for the department that has suffered from pretty high turnover and major deficiencies when it comes to project completion. So I'm curious, I know it's still a brief time, but in the few months that you've been with us, what's your take on that piece of this?
The communication has been at the forefront of my mind in terms of restructuring how my department runs. There's been, I would say, siloing of responsibilities, lack of communication between people in my department, and that came from the top.
Right.
Me coming in there, introducing the idea of one-on-one meetings, team meetings that happen weekly, like, this is just another example of us having increased communication and someone who can speak both to running a project itself and financing it. Understanding both of those aspects of it, and then having myself there as well that understands both aspects of it, can hopefully be a resource to the rest of the team in terms of having that knowledge of multiple sides, rather than the possibility of them staying as divided and then only one person understanding it and one person understanding the projects, rather than having it be one position and understanding it more, what would be the word, holistically. Yeah.
Yeah, because I certainly saw there areas, like you said, where there was siloing, where there was miscommunication, where there were handoffs that weren't completed, and therefore timelines were pushed out, costs increased over the course of that project. I think, again, I'll be appreciative to, your proverbial light being on at the end of the day and at night. Putting the work in to reach out to Fitchburg and Leominster, I think is a good proactive move. I'd be interested to hear how they're structured, the experiences they've had recruiting and retaining their talent. Because I think when we change a department structure like this, we want to make sure we have all the information at hand and make sure, the changes that we're implementing are, going to stand the test of time and give us the value that we're hoping they give us. So thank you for that proactive reach out. And I'd be curious to hear what they have to say. Back to you.
Thank you, President Tyros. Anything further? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. As I said to the finance, Madam Chair, thank you. And someone was going to do it this meeting.
I was like, if it wasn't you, it was probably going to be us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said at the Finance Committee meeting, this is something that I think is going to increase the efficiency. I agree with everything President Tyros just said. In the look between directors, I think the siloing between staff members really was exposed a lot more and had a lot more light shined upon it, and I think this breaks it down a bit more. And then I think the only additional thing I'd say that hasn't been said yet is one of the biggest things that we've heard from people in this department as they've left is concern about inadequate training going into the role. That is something that we are looking at addressing right now. The economic development side of the role itself that used to be held by the economic development coordinator, that's something that's going to be addressed through the work in the master plan process that's currently being done. As one of the main processes in that is creating a city economic development plan. And the master plan itself and the sub-chapters of the plan, the economic development plan, the housing production plan, of all of that are meant to guide all of the city's projects and initiatives for the next 20 years and set that roadmap up. So that's how we're planning on at least doing long-term professional development, as long as short-term just working with the individual who gets hired. And then on the financial side of things that used to be held by the budget project manager, one of our former budget project managers who left us in 2019, Katie Medina, has agreed to come back on a contract basis to train the new staff member on how IntelliGrants work, on the reporting and stuff. And quite frankly, she's probably one of the more informed people on how IntelliGrants, which is the federal reporting software for CDBG and other federal grants, actually works. And it's going to help us with cleaning up the backlog that we have on certain things, but also help training moving forward too. So she's agreed to help that. So that's how we're going to make sure that this person is set up for success in the long term too.
Thank you. Thank you for all the info. This is, again, like, we're just trying to all do like the best we can. And I think that you guys, having the answers to the questions readily available, like, you just obviously want your department to be ready to go, and you know that better than anyone in the last couple of months. So I think this kind of thorough vetting of this whole thing is worth it to do, because having all of the insight, because again, it's had to just have been a lot on your staff, yourself. I do like what you said about, somebody could speak to the project and the financials of the project. The Mackey project showed that wasn't possible. I mean, the information wasn't even there in a lot of cases. And so the other thing too is, in your role, like, you're going to be, the director is just out doing other things. It's development. You have to go meet with people. You have to go be places in the city. You have to have someone in the office who can answer questions that you could answer and can answer, but they have all of the information as well. Like, that's just really important. The presence in the community and the surrounding area is super important for you, and you can't do that if you don't have staff that can do the things that don't have the information. It sounds like you're fostering that, so I really, really appreciate that, because that wasn't something I mean, something I've thought about, but in terms of this position, I was like, well, it's another person in the office that's gonna be able to do that on top of their day-to-day as well, but everyone knows what's going on, and, you know, that was what the report showed a clear lack of, so that, all that information is really helpful. President Tavares?
One thing the mayor just reminded me of, I know you're waiting to hear back from Fitchburg and Munster, and one of the things in the training made me think of it actually, because there is a pretty significant cost savings by combining these roles, I do also think that warrants an opportunity, because we are paying one set of benefits, one set of training, to see this position slated for $75,000, is that enough? In terms of, it may very well be to get a qualified candidate for the role, but I just like that extra due diligence to make sure, especially with making a substantial change to give it the best chance of success. Can we do an analysis for us of this position, its roles and responsibilities at a high level for the salary compared to neighboring towns and cities? That way, we do have a meeting on the 22nd of April as an economic development committee. I'd like to discuss that at that meeting, and if you have that information, if you can give a thumbs up or thumbs down if they've been responsive to your requests by then, I'd like to put that on the council agenda the 22nd as well. So
That'd be great.
I think just having that information, having more context around the structure of the department, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think we'll have enough of a picture to make a decision on this.
Thank you, President Tavares. I definitely agree with that. I like that information as well. So I think kind of on that, I would, if there isn't any more discussion or questions or anything else that you'd like to add, I would like to keep this in committee so that we will have it to talk about. Our next meeting is slated for the 22nd, so then you'll have time to get us that information and follow up. And you know, obviously you want to hire this position, so we don't want to keep it in committee forever, but I think that would be really helpful for us to give a little bit more time to do that. So with that, we would keep this in committee, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Tyro, seconded by Councillor Heath, to keep item 11510 in the Economic Development Committee. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Okay. Item 11511, an ordinance to amend the Code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 171, thereof entitled Personnel, to amend Schedule E, thereof entitled Non-Union Compensation Schedule, to add the position of Economic Development and Finance Manager. So as I had said earlier, this goes with the previous item. It is the personnel features of the position, talking about compensation. If there anything else anyone would like to add or
Again, just to reiterate, I think we're taking, these kind of two more junior roles and positioning them together as a more complex senior role, customer facing, working with unique software, working with state agencies in various capacities, backing you up as a signatory, like you had said. So just that analysis that we're going to receive from the director before our next meeting.
Yep, and that's directly related to this item, but we'll keep both because they're packaged together. It doesn't make sense to send one without the other.
Completely.
And I was just gonna say too, on still this position in, I think when we do when we have someone contracted, like we have Ms. Medina coming back and she's contracted to do training, a lot of what goes on in City Hall in general is institutional knowledge. Like it is absolutely, you have to have done the job to really understand how to apply whatever skills you have. So I'm really glad we have that resource to be able to be applied, in your department's case. And I think that's worked in the other position that you've hired as well. I think that's worked out really well. So I'm glad that we're able to have that, because I hope that can just kind of support the process moving along well. Okay, is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to keep it on the calendar along with the last item, 11510, for the April 22nd next meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Heath, seconded by President Tyros to keep item 11511 on the Economic Development Committee's agenda. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11454, a report on the investigation of the Mackey Park project. So we had talked, this is on our previous agenda as well, and it will remain on, just kind of for updates here and there. We had talked last time about the the Park Street project needed to be some completion, so some funds could be encumbered to head over there. Do you have an update on that?
The only update I have is both the representative from Ty and Bond, the project engineer Alexander Bagnand, had called Verizon. I had also called Verizon because we are waiting for them to finish up the work on the double poles. They had then closed the existing work order to open up a new one. Hopefully bring it to the top of their pile, but until that's able to get completed, my hands are kind of tied with what else I can do aside from call them and just reiterate that this work is needed so that other work can continue, because we're reliant on these funds to be unencumbered to continue with the Mackey Park.
I appreciate the follow-up, and if,
Yeah.
I would just make a suggestion too, if you have an email, like put it in writing to them too, because then it's public
Yeah.
record, and then you can kind of follow up to that. I certainly understand a phone call first, but now that you've done that, and maybe you would have, but I just know that might be a good way to
This
do it.
customer service, it was, I'll go through it again so I can actually get someone's contact info and then reach out to them so that we can have that public record available for next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep, no, that would be great, and I like I said, I totally understand a phone call first, but I think moving forward, like you've done the courtesy of that, and you don't have any new info, like put it in writing to them so that you have it, because
Yeah.
you're doing what you need to do, and you just wanna make sure that we have a record of that, and hopefully it gets to the top of the pile sooner than later, so that we can move along with that, but I appreciate that. I didn't know what I expected for an update. I was hoping you had one, but you've done the reach out, and I appreciate the follow-up. Is there any comments, questions from the committee?
I have none.
Motion to keep item 11454 on our committee's calendar.
Second.
Motion made by by President Tyro, seconded by Councilor Heath, to keep item 11454 on the Economic and Community Development agenda. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by President Tyro, seconded by Councilor Heath to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.